Do you remember what childhood felt like? You know, building forts, getting scraped knees, just making up games as you went along, coming home covered in dirt.
Yeah, totally different.
Right. For so many kids today, that kind of unsupervised, just messy play, it's almost gone. And maybe it's not a coincidence, but what we're seeing everywhere, really, is this huge, quite worrying spike in anxiety, depression, and just a lot of mental health struggles among young people.
It's a massive shift.
It really is. So our mission here in this deep dive is to really unpack the powerful arguments in Jonathan Haidt's new book, The Anxious Generation, you know, how the great rewiring of childhood is causing an epidemic of mental illness. He gives this incredibly compelling take on why youth mental health is declining. It's something that once you hear it, it kind of sticks with you.
Definitely. And what Haidt really lays out is this core idea that smartphones everywhere, social media being constant, and also what he calls pretty provocatively overprotective parenting.
Right.
These things haven't just influenced childhood. He argues they've fundamentally rewired it, changed its basic structure. And his claim is that this rewiring is directly stunting healthy development, making kids less emotionally resilient. It's a huge claim he thinks we need to grasp.
Okay, so if that's the big idea, this fundamental rewiring, where does Haidt say it started? Because he flags a very specific time, doesn't he? It wasn't just a slow creep.
Exactly. No, he calls it the Great Rewiring, and he pins its main turning point right in the mid-2010s.
Mid-2010s, okay.
Yeah. That's the moment, he argues, when childhood just rapidly flipped from what he calls play-based, you know, outside, mostly unsupervised kids figuring things out themselves, to phone-based.
Phone-based, wow.
Which means indoors, often alone, just super screen-focused. The huge implication, as Haidt sees it, is that kids basically stopped going outside. They stopped having those kind of random, messy face-to-face encounters and just started living more and more online.
Just think about that for a second. What does it mean for a whole generation to grow up with that as their default reality? And it's not just like having a phone in your pocket, is it? What really struck you about how Haidt breaks down the specific, almost sneaky ways these platforms mess with young minds?
Well, what's fascinating is how specific he gets about the toxic effects.
Yeah.
He points out how platforms like Instagram, TikTok, especially maybe for teenage girls, they just fuel this intense social comparison.
Constantly comparing.
Constantly. And online bullying, this drive for a kind of perfection that's just not real. And it leads to what he calls addictive scrolling. He really breaks down the mechanics too. These platforms are built with these dopamine-driven feedback loops.
The likes, the comments.
Exactly. Those little hits of pleasure, like you said, like a reward in a game, they basically train young brains to constantly look outside themselves for validation. And crucially, Haidt's really clear. There's an online life, no matter how connected it feels, it just cannot replace the messy, necessary business of real-world social learning.
That difference online versus real-world development, that seems absolutely key. So, okay, tech is one huge piece, the rewiring. What other big shifts does Haidt say were critical, maybe even happening before smartphones totally took over?
That's a great point, because he doesn't just blame tech in a vacuum. He connects it directly to something else. The massive decline in free play.
Ah, right, the unstructured stuff.
Exactly. He really emphasizes that this kind of unsupervised outdoor play isn't just, nice nostalgia. It's absolutely vital for learning emotional regulation, how to handle conflict, basic social skills.
Yeah.
It's where kids learn to, negotiate, compromise, manage their feelings when things don't go their way.
Yeah, figuring it out on their own.
Right. So losing that free play, which he says is down to both the pull of tech and this trend of, overprotective parenting, it's left kids, less resilient, less able to cope with life's bumps, and so more anxious.
And he really goes hard on this idea of modern safetyism, the overprotective parenting. But, you could argue parents are just reacting to a world that feels scarier, even if statistically it isn't always, right? How does he handle that?
Yeah, he definitely acknowledges that parental instinct, of course. But his argument is that when parents try to shield kids from absolutely every risk, every little bit of discomfort, it actually backfires.
How so?
It stifles their independence. It stops them from developing their own coping skills. So the result, he argues, is a generation that's just less prepared for the normal challenges and letdowns of life. They haven't had those chances to, fall down and get back up, literally or figuratively. And that's so basic to building resilience. And what's interesting is his data shows this isn't just a U.S. thing. It's global.
And speaking of data, she doesn't just talk in generalities, right? He gets into how biologically, culturally, boys and girls might use tech differently and how it hits them differently too. What's like one really striking thing he pulls from that global data?
Yeah, he uses data from all over to show this pattern. And one really striking thing is how teenage girls seem to have been disproportionately hit by the rise of these image-based platforms.
Like Instagram.
Exactly. Yeah. Driving up rates of depression, self-harm. Whereas for boys, the challenges might show up differently, maybe more related to, say, video game addiction or feeling isolated. So if you boil down Haidt's key points, mental illness rates shot up sharply around 2012, especially for Gen Z. Girls face really unique pressures from image-based social media. And for everyone, there's this urgent need to get back to more face-to-face interaction and, frankly, limit screen time. A lot.
Okay, so if that's the picture he's painting, and it is pretty stark, what does he say we should do? Because thankfully he doesn't just diagnose the problem. He offers actual recommendations, right? What's his vision for, like, fixing childhood?
Right, he definitely offers solutions. His big message is that we have to consciously, actively rebuild childhood around independence, play, and real community. He has a pretty clear vision. Give kids more independence. Like, let them walk to school again, play outside without constant supervision, maybe even figure out their own small arguments. He's also big on encouraging way more free play and building stronger communities where kids can connect and thrive in the real world, not just online.
And the book's definitely made waves, people calling it a powerful wake-up call, deeply researched. Lots of people appreciate that he actually offers solutions, but, I mean, any book this challenging is going to get pushback. What are some criticisms or tricky spots?
Yeah, while the reception's been largely positive, it definitely hits some nerves. Some will find the arguments uncomfortable, maybe even, controversial, especially if you're really big on tech or if you feel like your own parenting is being criticized.
Sure.
And, there's the practical side. Some might say the solutions, while they sound good, are maybe a bit idealistic or just really hard to actually do now, given how embedded tech is and how much society has already changed.
Right, like putting the genie back in the bottle?
Kind of. It's a big ask.
Ultimately, though, this deep dive into the anxious generation feels like a really profound, urgent call to action. It's aimed at parents, teachers, policymakers, really anyone who's worried about the well-being of the kids coming up now. Haidt's tone, it feels both compassionate but also really urgent. It's not about blaming, but about understanding this huge shift and, hopefully finding a better path forward.
Absolutely. So maybe as you think about all this, here's something to chew on. How could you personally, in your own life, your own community, whether you're a parent, a teacher, a neighbor, to someone who cares, how could you help nudge things back towards more independent play, more real face-to-face connection, a stronger sense of actual community for young people? How can we all play a small part in maybe rewiring childhood back towards resilience?